Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Storytelling Studies. Today is a bit of a heavy topic, but that's the beauty of storytelling, right? We can tackle emotionally intense topics and give consumers important life lessons. And today we'll be going over how I interpreted Halo Reach's message around genocide. While of course during the entire Human Covenant War, the Covenant aimed to wipe out all of humanity, as a descendant of genocide survivors myself, I just see Reach as having the most to say directly and metaphorically about it. During the campaign, more so than any other Bungie game, we are clearly shown how the Covenant uses their military power to enact terror on the civilians, which is something not a lot of games point consistent emphasis on, so almost exclusively dealing with like soldier v soldier conflicts, which sadly, as we know from human history, is just not representative of how war turns out for civilians caught in the crossfire. Our first experience of this is in the campaign. There are these scared farmers hiding in their homes, and then after that, there's this traumatized girl in this cutscene that's left with the body of her murdered father, trapped by the elites. Of course, later in the city, it only gets worse with the spirit dropships just hovering around, merely to give free fire for the passengers on unarmed civilians, and brutes torturing their captives, a precedent set in Halo 2 and 3. Entire evacuee ships shot down, cities destroyed to ashes. It's an intentional and total destruction of the populace. In addition, the glassing of planets mirrors total destruction of land intentionally in many historical cases of genocide in our real world, be it the intentional mass hunting of bison to starve Native Americans, the countless times the British Empire exported food from a colony in the grips of mass starvation, or today in Gaza as Israel intentionally scars the land and uproots olive trees that have been providing for local people since before Islam and Christianity even existed in some cases. It's an intentional action done by a military force with the goal of making the land uninhabitable for those who rightfully call it their home. In this case, on Halo Reach, it's on a planetary scale, though, which really drives home the genocidal intent of the Covenant. Given these clear connections, I know for myself personally, it leads me to project identities of historical heroes trying to fight a genocidal power onto Noble Team themselves. I mean, think about it. You're trying to save as many civilians as you can at every turn, and by the end, when it is clear that the battle for Reach is lost, the goal switches to doing whatever is possible to give those refugees, as well as the rest of humanity, a chance to live another day. With the later Halo novels giving us the heartwarming conclusion of people returning to the land they were once wiped out from, while of course the scars of the people and the glass land itself remain, just the very act of them walking the same land they were once forced to flee from is inspiring. It tells me, at least, that someday in our world, perhaps all peoples who endured the pains of genocide can return to the very land their ancestors and even perhaps they themselves once called home, hopefully giving us some like a semblance of justice and healing even. Indeed, even many of the Spartans themselves were specifically chosen from people who were orphaned by the Covenant. And up until 343 came into the control of the series, the Spartans were nearly extinct, with the Master Chief being the only Spartan we'd ever see in the Bungie timeline after Reach. The loss at Reach not only resulted in the direct genocide of the population, it also nearly brought the Spartans, the very heroes who were pivotal in ensuring any of humanity survived the war at all, mind you, to near extinction. It feels to me, with all of this in mind, the ultimate message of Reach is telling beyond the obvious that genocide is horrific, horrible, and traumatizing, is that with a little bit of luck, a lot of sacrifice, and even more camaraderie, there is hope. There are individuals amongst humanity as a whole that have the courage and moral backbone to sacrifice their own safety to protect the innocent victims of much larger tyrannical militaries. Be it George willing to detonate the bomb manually on the Covenant supercarrier, Cat constantly going into unclassified documents to get the maximum understanding of the situation for the whole team, Carter literally going down with the ship to clear the way, and so much more. All of Noble Team shows us that even when the odds are literally impossible to overcome, there is still immense value in giving your all for who and what you wish to protect. So let's recap what we can learn for our own storytelling should we wish to touch on the topic of genocide. First, focusing on military attacks on civilians as well as the intentional scorching of the land clearly distincts the situation from what many would view as a quote-unquote traditional battle, driving the true evil intent of the more powerful force home. Second, having this come up on several missions throughout a campaign if you're doing this in a video game, spread out rather than just like a set piece in one mission or two like a lot of Call of Duty games, for example, tend to do. It not only keeps the topic on the player's mind, but it also increases the player's sense that their actions can do something about it. It's hard to feel like you're being empowered to stop anything when entire planets are destroyed in cutscenes, but when the civilians are right in front of you in the mission and you have a chance to save them if you're fast enough, like in Reach, well, that does give the player a sense of empowerment. Even if they can't win the war as a whole, they can save a couple individuals. Lastly, we can still give a message of hope and an ending for these conflicts we write, even when the villains win at the battle, so long as they don't win the war, so to speak. So yeah, hopefully you got some ideas and or enjoyed it. Take care, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.